Hello guys, how are we doing? Welcome back to Help with Harrz, a series where I make you guys better at Black Ops 6 ranked play, or at least I hope to. Today we're reviewing I Hit Old Times gameplay, which is a brilliant name by the way. It's a fairly good gameplay. They're in Crimson, but the focuses of today's video, which are going to help every single one of you watching this, is how to use movement effectively in gunfights around the map, how to make it so that you don't, your decision making and things like that are good. Now, obviously, the majority of players within Black Ops 6 ranked play are gold, plat, diamond sort of region, maybe a little bit less towards like the gold, plat side, but that doesn't mean this gameplay, just because it's a Crimson gameplay, is going to be unuseful. We're going to be covering things we really like about this gameplay as we go through, but there's going to be just mistakes that this player makes that you're also likely to be making. And obviously, covering a Crimson lobby here, for those of you who are Crimson themselves, this is obviously going to be very applicable to you. The gameplay is on Hacienda hardpoint, so if that's a map mode you struggle with as well, this gameplay is going to be useful. And we're going to look at the form they submitted, run through the gameplay and pick out some things that I feel like we could help improve, and then do a little bit of a summary that I want this player to focus on, maybe 2 or 3 things towards the end of the video. And of course, throughout today's video, what's your feedback? Keep it constructive. Anything you notice in the gameplay that I don't mention that you feel like could benefit this player's individual performance, shout it out down below in the comments, but obviously keep it constructive, of course. Now, let's get into the form. So their name is I Hit Old Time. They play on PC. They play 15 hours a week, so not a substantial amount of time. It's probably similar to what I play at the moment. They're Crim 2, highest rank last year was Crim 1. So first of all, well done on getting better than you did last year. That's always what we want to see, that improvement over the year. That's fantastic. FOV is 95, sensitivity 1.6. 95, actually don't mind that. 95 to 105 is normally where I prefer to see FOVs in multiplayer ranked play. They have a controller. They are a channel member. They have a high-end PC, 240Hz monitor, solid controller, nice headphones. They've got the setup. Okay, so that's definitely not hindering them. What one thing would you like Harrz to focus on most in your gameplay? What blind spots do I have as a solo queue player? What are the most important elements missing from my gameplay that would help me win more? In this video, my stats end up decent, which we've seen already, but I have a rough start. I feel like we should have won by more if I had played better. Completely understand. I think I have average aim for Crimson player, but my movement is below average. I struggle with overthinking the game sometimes, or being impatient and forcing things. In other words, I feel like pacing and decision making are an issue for me, sometimes too slow, sometimes too fast. So we're going to be covering all of these things, okay? But my main focus, I think, because you say your movement is below average, that's something I'm going to tune into a little bit more so than the rest of it. So without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. Let's rewind this all the way back to the start. You seem to be playing with a 4-stack, this looks like. I mean, I don't know, the colors might be a little bit different to mine, but this feels like it is a 4-stack, but I'm going to assume not based on your commentary in the form you sent. And we're using a sub. Now, if this is your main gun of choice, 95 FOV can be a little bit low, but we're going to see how that hinders you, but I think you're probably fine. And setup-wise, your setup looks fairly decent. I like the route we're taking. It's an intelligent route, and you've instantly got control of top middle. And you're just trying to be that support. You're trying to make it so that the enemy has to fight for you before they get to the hard point itself. Now, that's the first gunfight we lost, which is a little bit of a shame. Let's just take a look at how we could perfect that slightly better. So we sort of expected them to come there, and they did a little bit later than we expected them to. But I think the issue here is that you don't trust your judgment. So I think something like this, you've got to show that you know where they're coming from. Okay, so we look at the mini map. You get 4 down. Okay, first of all, teammate spawns in behind you. Again, I'm just looking at these green dots on the mini map here, which typically means the enemies are spawning the opposite side. So vaguely, and this is just really vaguely here, if we have a look at an enemy spawning over, or your teammate spawning here, which is where they have, the enemy's likely to be spawning over here. Now, the reason for that is because we're pushed up top right. And if you don't remember on P1 on Hacienda, if you imagine whatever side you're not weighted towards is the side the enemies are going to be spawning. So because you've got top middle control, you've got teammates on this right hand side, you've also got a teammate back here, you've got coverage here, coverage on time, coverage here, and then coverage here. So, I don't know what went on there. What quarter out of these 4 corners is safest for your enemy? Now, the answer should be this one. And the reason for that is because this one is a little bit too close to you here. This one's obviously too close to this player, and this one's a bit too close to this player as well. So the most open spawn, the safest corner is this. And an easy way to determine where that would be is to draw a triangle. Like in your head, when you see your teammate's position, draw like, is your teammates fall into that triangle? And if they do, they're likely to spawn here. If your teammates were slightly differently positioned, and let's say, for example, the triangle was a little bit more lenient towards that way, let's say you were pushed up this side, then this would be where they spawn, the opposite side of the, for those of you out there, the math geeks, the hypotenuse. But no, that's essentially how it works. So because your team's triangle looks a little bit like that, that's where they're going to be spawning on P1 Hacienda. So second guessing yourself is what I think you've done here, and as a result, you're not completely ready for the gunfight. I think if you fully believed 100%, if someone told you right here, right, they're going to come through this doorway, or they're going to be spawning tin, what would you have done differently? Would you have, and what you should do, what I'm hoping you say is, I'd have got into a pre-aim ready for that door, someone to push through that doorway. Okay, and that's what you should have done. I think you're a little bit impatient here. You get a little bit antsy because you've not seen anyone in a while. You're just trying to really get that first kill. And as a result, you're not trusting your read. So you're pre-aiming. I love the fact that you're pre-aiming things even though you don't necessarily know people are coming there. And then I think you get potentially distracted by the fact that your teammates just been contested on time as well. So there's a lot happening. But I'm thinking, if I told you 100% without a shadow of doubt that we're spawning tin, would you have just aimed at this corridor? And you should have. That is what you should have. And the only way you'd 100% know that they were coming in is if you just read the spawns correctly. So maybe that's something we've got to work on. But first gunfight, we unfortunately lose. I think because we were either not ready or a little bit distracted by what else was going on in the map. Okay, so similarly, P1 Hacienda, I'm going to break this down. Again, I'm trying to keep it quite simple here. You've just spawned here, which tells you what area of the map do the enemy have. If we draw that triangle out again, for you to spawn there, the enemy have got control of this sort of region of the map. Okay, so they're likely to be spawning over here, and they're probably running through this right-hand side, or they've got control of, let's go make them red, they've got control of top here, maybe they're pushing through well, or and they've got control of this left-hand side, otherwise you'd have just completely flipped. Okay, so they've got control of this sort of yellow triangle because of where you've spawned here, which tells you that they could be, especially considering there's 25 seconds left of field time, they could be thinking about the rotation to new. But because you spawned here, logically speaking, is likelihood is they're going to be coming from tin, because the furthest possible spawn away from where you've just spawned. So there's some cracking. I apologize for those of you who are hearing that, but okay. This is a little bit of an aggressive push, especially considering you have absolutely no map control. So you spawn in here and you wrap around, which I don't mind. I actually don't think I mind this whatsoever. I think this is an okay play. But your teammates are dying and you have no idea where they've just died, okay? You've got, you see this green skull, which is your teammate's skull, and they died at the top. So it's not, that for you should instantly tell you that that is not a safe space for your teammates, for you to go without checking your corners properly, that sort of thing. Now, you don't know where that enemy is because they're just off. I know you can't quite see that. If I keep my mouse still, it might disappear. But because of this, the minimap not quite covering all the way to that area of the map, you can't necessarily see where that enemy is. So what I would do in that situation where you have absolutely no idea where enemies are, two of your teammates have just died, and you have no map control, pull up your TAC map. So scoreboard, R1 or right bumper, it'll be R1 with your controller, and just have an idea of where your teammates are and are not. But this generally, because you've just seen this teammate die and you can still see that skull, you should have been checking with the stun and with a nade. So what if this were me, I'm stunning either left or right and then checking the other side. So if I throw the stun right, I don't get anything, I then check left. So at least then for a second or two, you know your right-hand side is clear because you just haven't stunned something. Again, if you stunned left, just on your left here, and you don't get a stun, you then chow right. So you've got left, you know no one's there because the stun hasn't hit, so therefore you chow right. I hope that makes sense. But that's what you should be doing in this situation instead of doing what we do, which is, I like the fact you come out pre-aiming, but you haven't in your head said, right, the right-hand side is completely safe, which I think you need to do before you do this, especially considering your teammate has just died up here. Okay, so we're not in the worst situation in the world. Obviously, spawning out when there's 10 seconds left is gnarly because you've got to make up the ground and almost fight for the spawn again, but we'll see how we progress with this. Don't mind that nade, trying to get a last-minute Hail Mary onto the P1 there, I don't really mind too much. But I like this. We're trying to progress to the hill, trying to help out, and we're just watching the pinch. You've read the fact that your teammates have got most of the other area covered, and as long as you win your gunfights this side, we should be chilling. Your teammates just get 2 kills, which means now 3, so there's going to be 3 enemies spawning in, and you need to try and understand where they're going to be spawning. Now, again, when you're solo queuing, you have very little idea of where they're going to be, so you need to use your tac map to establish where your teammates are. From a guess, from looking at this, I would assume your teammates, ignore these arrows, by the way, I'm just going to move them out of the way quickly. By the way, if you want to use this tool yourself to play with your team or whatever, or practice it, whatever, it's called gamecoach.gg. I'm in no way affiliated with it, but it's a brilliant tool for this sort of stuff. So your teammate's position, you've got, zoom in slightly to this side of the map, you've got a teammate here, teammate maybe back here, you're here, and then, yeah, I mean, we don't know where that player is because, again, you haven't looked at your tap map, but then you've got a player who's just spawned all the way out, probably around here. So that's where your teammates are positioned. Now, again, this might be because of spawn control, but from this, you would easily be able to say, okay, the enemies are all going to be spawning here. Okay, no, they're going to run through here, or they're going to run through the back. But in any case, this is the main direction of routes they're going to be coming from. There may be one straggler coming from old, maybe coming from this way, but most of the force of the enemy team is going to be from the backside, just from well. And you might already know that. Obviously, I can't imagine what's in your head right now, but generally, using your tac map would enable you to say, yep, 100% they're going to be spawning there. Because it's a game, okay? The spawns aren't as random as people like to think. It is a game. It's coded so that if specific situations arise, you spawn in a specific situation that match that, okay? So it's somewhat, there's rules the game follows to spawn people in a specific zone. Okay, let's break down this gunfight. So first of all, got into P2, don't mind this whatsoever, but we're running a little bit without an aim. I don't mind that whatsoever, but your teammate's in a really nice position where, as long as you're hidden from front, and again, this is where solo queuing is difficult because you can't communicate, so you've just got to be ultra aware of what your teammates are doing, and that's the #1 solo queue tip, really. You know what your teammates are doing at all times, and that's why solo queuing differs so much from quad stacking, because you get the communication given to you from their comms when you're quad stacking, or at least you should do. But your job here, when you enter the hill, you say, okay, I've got a teammate here. They are the first line of defense to this doorway. Okay, the enemies can't get through this doorway without this player right here, because he's laying down in the cruddy spot, laying down right there, getting a kill or dying. So your job is to make sure that you don't have to worry about this side. Basically, yes, you've got teammates here, but again, look at the minimap. Where is not covered? So I've already said this front side is covered by 1, 2 enemies. I know this teammate does fall, so you've got that covered from there. You've got to assume your teammate's going to pick up your backside, who's behind you. So the other place that is open is your side door. So any situation, especially when you've got 4 people still alive in your team, you've got to think, right, where do I need to cover? And if I'm asking you now, okay, look at this map and look at this situation, where do you think you need to look? You're probably yelling at the screen saying, side door, of course, side door, because it's the only place no one's going to watch. And you've obviously see what happens here. But your commitment to that gunfight makes you weak. You then get pushed from the side door. Whereas if you'd have just taken ownership of side door and trusted your teammate on the left here to do their job, you've probably got far more chance of winning this gunfight, because you're taking on this gunfight at 20 health. They've only got put 2 bullets in you max and you're dead. You'd have won that gunfight otherwise. And because you've died in the hill, your teammates then had to come back round to help you, and that's the whole setup is broken. You win that gunfight, it's a completely different story. Okay, there's 15 seconds left. We don't want to overly commit to this. You really want to play your life, but just make it difficult. So this is going to be quite advanced now, what I'm just going to go through here, because people don't even think about it. But because you're trying to get to Iridescent, I'm trying to make it so that you're really thinking about every little thing that you could do. So in a situation where there's 15 seconds left, you want to give your teammates, who are the other side of the map, the best possible guess of where the enemy's going to be coming from. Okay, so what you're doing, if we think about where P2 is, if I just highlight P2, P2 is here, P3 is here. In a situation like this one, the enemies are all coming from this sort of general area. Maybe they're coming from back here, but the enemy, I'm actually going to make them red, because they're the enemies. P2 and the backside area here. Now, that's generally where everyone will expect them to be coming from you and your teammates, right? Which is why you picked up this area. You staying alive in this region, I'm going to make you light blue here. You staying alive in this region tells your teammates, right, the enemies haven't gone this way because you'd have cut them off. Okay, so what that allows your teammates to do is instead of putting their focus towards 3 lanes, they can then go, okay, I just need to make sure that middle's cut off and then front's cut off. You just staying alive here and making sure enemies don't get through essentially tells your teammates that, okay, I need to make sure they can't come through well, and I need to make sure they can't get out top mid easily. Okay, that's what you do for your team. And again, your solo queuing, so it differs slightly, but that's essentially you staying alive here is huge because it means that your teammates, the other 3 members of your teammates, only have 2 areas they need to watch. It's just started absolutely thundering outside, so I apologize if you guys can hear that, but we're going to crack on with the video in any case. But I hope this makes sense. I hope, in essence, you staying alive here means your 3 teammates can focus on 2 routes rather than having to spread themselves thin over 3 routes. Okay, and that's the value of this. Unfortunately, your teammate was trying to do the same thing, and I like the fact that you've read that and understood that your teammate's doing the same thing. You've gone, okay, let me watch the other areas. You being here is a really nice angle because you've got, if they come through bottom mid, you've got that. If they come through top left, you've got that. If they come through top close, you've got that. The only area you don't have from this situation is if they come up the middle stairs. But that's tough. Like, you're never going to be able to completely read that, but we'll see how this plays out. 2 deaths. Whilst this hill is alive, that's 3 kills, sorry. While this hill is alive, every single one of your enemies are going to be spawning at the back, which makes it, again, even more readable. And this goes back to the play that we're saying where you're making sure that you don't die this side. Your teammates know that they're going to be coming from a specific location. Okay, so your teammates... Oh, that's a hard read. That's a hard read. I'm not going to criticize you there. If I really wanted to, I could probably break it down and pause it, but there's no way you're going to be able to do that sort of analysis in-game live, so I'm not going to be an arsehole about it. Apologies if you can hear the rain. It's super loud and banging on the window in front of me, so... Nice. I like that. I think you've probably got the wrong gun for that situation, but I like that. Make it unpredictable. Give yourself a bit of an angle. Very aggressive. And it means your teammates have got no one left on the hill. Okay, your teammates gone absolutely huge here. So 20 seconds left. Gets to the tricky time whether you don't know whether to help hold or rotate to P4, sorry. But the fact that you've gone P4 here isn't an issue because they've tried to rotate. He's probably screaming at his team saying, they're already bloody here, which is what you want. Somehow an enemy's got middle. Nice concuss. Lovely kill. Okay, when we're thinking about movement right now, this is the first element of movement not working in your favor. So this whole play is really nice. I like the fact you've stayed up here. You jump shot, you hip fire, really nice use of movement in that gunfight. The jump down makes it unpredictable, like that whole gunfight movement, really nice. What happens next is a little bit tricky. So that is a little bit clunky. That slide cancel was a little bit clunky. I keep rewinding quite far. Now, I think part of it is because you're not fully tack sprinting, and that means your slide is slightly slower, and you know you're not fully tack sprinting because your gun's not fully coming up. When your gun comes up like that, it tells you that you've activated tack sprinting. That's when you're running quicker, and which means you slide quicker, you dive quicker and further, that sort of thing. So what that means is you don't fully... I'm rewound it again just so I can analyze it. But when you... I'm going to slow it down again. When you... I'm not going to slow down, don't need to. But when you come out that slide cancel, you're not pre-aiming, first of all. You're sort of in a situation where you're not... Because you can aim while you're sliding, that's really effective because it means you don't then have to aim after you've slid. So yeah, not the best use of movement. And then you've drop shot around the corner, which I don't mind. But again, we're at a gunfight where we haven't been ready for it. So yes, you were sort of ready for it, but you've had to aim in after you've seen the person rather than aiming in and then the person appears. Okay, so it tells me you weren't necessarily expecting someone to push here, which is a surprise, but it might be again because we're slightly distracted by the other elements happening around you. The enemy's on time, but that's where you've just got to sort of trust your teammate on the left to have that focus. and you just say, right, I've got front, just kill that guy middle, okay? And that's because your teammate's engaged in that gunfight. He's going to be the main worry for that player at the moment. But I like the element. I like the idea of drop shot around corners. That can work really well. But I think you're in a situation there where you just sort of weren't 100% ready for that gunfight. Yeah, really tough. This for me is a 4 sub hill because you get all the gunfights are really close, and you've changed to a sub. Love that. You've recognised the mistake and what caused you that gunfight loss. Do I like this? Yes, it paid off in your favour. Your teammate's getting 2 pieces. Excuse me. Yeah, we're trying to make some ground here, which I really enjoy. Nice, they're probably fuming. Don't mind that. A pre-fire there probably wouldn't have hurt, especially considering you knew that's where they were going to come from. So far, really solid gameplay. Your teammates are doing really well here. Nice trade. It was close. I say close. It looked close, but I don't think it was. Right. I'd love to see a trophy thrown at this point. Either on the hill, around the hill, whatever. Again, really nice kill. That was hard to see. I'm not going to over-criticize you for that. That player blended in. There was smoke, all sorts. We'll ignore that. You know what's gone wrong there. I don't necessarily like that we hopped on time with our teammate there, but it's paid off, so I don't mind it. This is so far so good. We've actually managed to obtain a solid lead now. Good route. This is a good route. The enemies are going to expect pressure from the front, but this makes it so that they're also looking at you. Play alive here, buy time for your teammates. Try and find a gap. Oh, okay. Okay, to be fair, at this point, none of you have shot, or at least hit a shot. This should have been your gunfight to win. I'm just going to slow it down slightly. Where speed is speed. It was the following of the strafe. I think you got yourself into a crouch position, which actually offers no benefit. It's the worst position to be in because you're slower when you're crouching. You get less recoil, but I think recoil is not a pattern, not an element of this that you need to consider because you're so close to them and they've got no cover. But you end up sitting in a crouch position for a long time, which means you don't strafe as quickly because you're crouching, nor are you much of a small target. You're a big boxy target, like a big square now because you're crouched that they can really easily aim at, especially with a pistol. I think you did too much in this gunfight. You either completely drop shot, which I, again, probably would have advised not to do because it's something else to think about. But I think you just take the gunfight on. They've got a pistol. You're going to kill them quicker. Take the gunfight on and just strafe. Use the strafe speed of your jackal to your advantage here and win that gunfight. So again, unfortunately, we haven't broken the spawns. I wouldn't mind you picking up an Amis to give you a little bit more flexibility in this area. I've rewound it. I'm going to rewind this slightly. So I think you're conscious of there being something here. I would love for you to use your stuns and nades to help progress you up the map. I know you've used it a couple of times to break hills, and I think that's fantastic. But the next level to that is when you're trying to push an area which is a hot spot, and this, you know it's a hot spot because the way I can tell how cautious you're being around this area, you know there's an enemy nearby. So I think your game sense is there. You've got both a stun and a nade at your like in your back pocket ready to use. I think you should use that in this situation. Again, similar to coming up spiral, knowing not where to look. When you're in a situation like that where there's 3 places they could be, whether they're on the left, on the right, or just front in front of you, you can throw a stun and a nade at 2 and make it so that, okay, those 2 are cleared now. Let me just check on the 1, and you can really use those stuns and nades to your advantage there. And that's outside of him. That's outside of anything else. That's going to give you the best benefit there. It's just using your utility, maybe a little bit more specifically. Okay, we've got to be cautious here, breaking the back. It's a good read from them. And we're spawning in the back, which is a shame. You don't fight old, you go new. Now, why? In this situation, you've got 13 seconds left of this hill. If you win this gunfight, you win 5 seconds. Maybe one at the time you've won the gunfight and you get to the hill, you get 5 seconds of hill time. Now, whilst you're here, you are blocking this spawn. So the longer you are lingering around this side of hill, any progression towards the map your teammates get, and let's say they get some kills over towards P3, the enemies aren't going to spawn at old because you're here. So the way you can stop that from happening is just rotate to new, because then it leaves this spawn open. Any kills your teammates get, spawn them at old, and they've reset their progression. If your teammates get kills while you're here trying to take on this gunfight and you're stuck in this position because you've got yourself in this position, the enemies are going to spawn in the better spawn for the next 2 hills, give or take. So yeah, don't push this hill. Give away 15 seconds. The game is so close that you can give away 15 seconds here. And because you're only really going to benefit 5 seconds from it, it's not worth it, especially considering you're challenging this heady, which isn't smart. So for me, rotate to new, get a proper setup. Because you know an enemy is on this old time, you know at least where one is going to be coming from, and they're going to be a little bit delayed behind the rest of the players. So you just leave that set up with your team, take the time to set up, and yeah, get your kills. They'll then spawn back here and reset completely. So yeah, not the smartest of gunfights, I don't think. But I like the effort. I like the effort. So yeah, your teammates just got 2 kills, but they're not going to spawn because of, again, this is going to, I'm getting a little bit more complex because I'm talking to a Crimson player. So it does take a little level up. But your teammates' positions are all sort of around here. I don't know where they are specifically, just give or take in that sort of region. You've just spawned in here. Now, because your teammates have just got 2 kills, the enemy team will no longer spawn. They're no longer going to spawn here or here because of how close both of those spawns are to your teammates. They're actually likely to spawn all the way out over here, which means now your teammates got to worry about people coming through that way. They've got to worry about people coming top plat, and it leaves, and top plat is the hub of whatever you want to call it for P3. Like, you want it of top plat control. But what you're doing here, because you've died and you've stopped the enemy from spawning at these 2 spawns, the enemy has now got a pretty advantageous view at hitting P3 because of that decision making. If you'd have just run away all the way like this, and the enemies then died, let's say your teammates then still kill the enemies, but which should happen because you haven't influenced the game whatsoever, the enemies then spawn back here because you're now out of that zone, and at that point they don't have control of plat or over here. They don't get that easily. They're then having to run this way behind you, and it makes it a little bit more predictable. But your teammates getting 2 kills, they're then going to spawn in the better spawn for P3, sorry. All because you've not rotated properly. No, I like this. I don't think your movement's too bad. I think you see people move. It's just not your play style. I think you're probably looking to be a little bit more flashy, maybe. You don't need to be flashy. Love that. That's tough. You've just been traded. Hopefully you've got the teammates backing you there. I like this. I was hoping you were going to do this. Nice. Yeah, I've still got plenty of bullets. Okay, it's worked out in your favor. Okay, 3 of your team are down. You're likely to lose this because your teammate's on there by himself. Okay. A million things we could do slightly better here. That's an exaggeration, obviously. So, this, first of all, I don't mind. You're not fully sprinting. You're ready sort of for the gunfight. I don't mind that. We're now in a position where your teammates are still on hill. There's only 2 dead. You have to assume someone's here. Because the risk of not assuming someone's here is far greater than the time it takes you to assume someone's here and they end up not being here. Okay, assume someone's here. You're then ready for the gunfights. You can stun. You can nade. You'll have the upper hand on the gunfight you're about to take on. But let's say they're not here. Let's say you put in all that work to just try and make this challenge smart, and they don't end up being there. It's like, oh well, I've still got hill. Yeah. So if this for me, assume someone's here, you use your stun, you use a nade, especially considering you've got a frag grenade, you can literally throw it over this thing, whatever this thing is here, into the inner side of P4 just by launching it up in the air. So if you don't know how to, that's just probably worth practicing, and that'll get them weak, and then you can challenge a little bit more effectively. What happens? Like, again, you're not expecting this player whatsoever, and you probably should be, especially considering you got a kill and there's so little time left to P3. What you do next, I actually don't mind that. You throw the stun, and then you switch to your pistol when you've got 14 bullets left in the magazine. Guarantee you get the kill if you slide your AR out. So I don't know whether you thought you had no bullets left, but you've only taken on 1 gunfight, maybe 2 gunfights, so you're going to have plenty of bullets left. Even now, you've got plenty enough bullets left to take on a gunfight. So yeah, I think you could have managed, a couple of times, a couple of ways, you could have easily got that kill on the player who was there before you. We're leaving it late to center to that right-hand side door. Look how I'm just looking, like, centering wise. You are all the way through here. And again, look at where your center dot is. Okay, the enemies aren't going to come from either side of that, which is fine. But you are so far around this corner before you even begin to turn to look right. And because your centering isn't on this doorway, which I think that's where you want to go, that's where your centering should be. You're then caught having to turn, make that huge adjustment swing, and you've ended up losing the gunfight as a result. And again, you've still got your IR out on this hill where you need subs out, because all of the like lines of sights you can reduce, and once you get close to the hill, it's better to defend with us from a sub. Yeah, your movement does seem a little bit clunky. I'm not sure if it's a setting. We're not tack sprinting. I don't know whether there's something wrong with your settings here, but you're running quite a lot here. You get the kill, you start sprinting again, and you don't tack sprint in that element, in that bit when you've just got the pistol kill. You switch weapon to your rammers again and you push. You don't tack sprint, which means your slide cancel's a little bit sluggish, and then again your centering is a little off. Like, you've appeared out of this gunfight and your centering is here rather than where they're likely to be, which is this step gap here, which is where they are, or on this heady itself. So you then have to make that adjustment. They then get the kill. These are really, I mean, I know I'm being really picky, but these are the really things. These are, like, being really picky is what you need to be to get to that iridescent level. Like, there's a reason why it's like the top 1%. Okay, going from the top 5% to the top 1% is a huge jump. And it's because of these tiny little specific things people are doing. Good kill. You predicted it. They came that way. You win the gunfight. Lovely. Okay, you actually, maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to catch your attacks. We spend a little bit too long on P1 here. So your teammate gets on. It's your job now to try and make it so that you can defend your teammate. So if this were me, I'm leaving my teammate here. You have very little control of the top elements of this hill. You can see, like, you've only got a teammate behind you. You've got the other teammate on the hill with you. But other than that, you don't have much hill control. So you're fish in a barrel ready to die, essentially, on P1. If this were me, I'm going back out. And you do have a teammate behind you, to be fair here. But if this were me, I'm either sprinting to the doorway, or I'm just trying to get out of a situation where I'm sat down here with no one overlooking me, So I'm either, to be fair, if this would be, I'm either running to this doorway, running up there, or, which is more likely, going back up and going up the trellis, top close, and you like play for this top close control above you here that way. But yeah, you stay on point quite a long time. You do get enough damage out for your teammates to get a trade. But again, I'm trying to be picky. I'm trying to make it so that the more I point out, the better player you're going to be. I like this. Already thinking about new. Already thinking about P2, sorry. I don't think movement is your strong suit. I see why you say that, because both times there, if I take a little step back, and my cursor's in the way, apologies. Like both times you slid, you like over slid. That might be purposeful. Yeah, I don't mind it. Maybe I think I'm being too picky there. Okay. I don't like this spot. 2 reasons why. First of all, from here, you're not watching anything, really. So from here, you can see that. If I were to make it really tight, you can see that. From here, you can see that if you're looking at it. You know, it's quite a slim line of sight there. But what you don't have from here is, zoom out slightly. What you don't have from here is that. Okay, so I'm not massively fond of this. And also what you don't have here is you're not really, if someone does that, you're not really getting that kill, because this is quite a tight angle here. Like this gap here is quite tight. So if they slid out just through that gap, they can easily get through here. And that's reason 1 number I don't like that spot is because it allows people to get through quite easily through those 2 areas. And then the main reason why I don't like that spot is even when you should only have 1 person blocking on this hill, because otherwise it's not an effective use of the team. Even when you're back here, let's just draw the spawns out quickly. So you've got spawn sort of back here, spawn back here. Okay, they're the 2 main spawns. Okay, it might vary very slightly, but from this Jeep, when you're behind the Jeep, correct, you're blocking that spawn, but you are not blocking this. Enemies can spawn there over and over again because you're so far back. If you want to block both of these spawns, the best place to do it is being in this zone. And then from there, guess what? The enemies spawn out, and you've also got this whole lobby cut off. So if enemies decide to, they'll spawn up, like, if I zoom out, enemies will spawn like up here for P2. So they've either got to run through middle like that to pick P2, which case you've got that line of sight. The only way they come round to your right is if they take a really long line of sight route like that, which they're pretty unlikely to do. But yeah, don't like the Jeep too much. And you've also got stuns and nades, which you could be using in this gunfight. So you get the first kill. You're ready. I like this. You're having to check too much. You see what I mean? Like you've not got lobby covered. People can easily leak through somehow through the back. Not a massive fan of this. I do like the first gunfight here. But then as soon as you get that gunfight, you're weak. You're at a real disadvantage. You're one shot. You need to be as difficult as possible. Stun, nade, do what you can. But yeah. And you'd have seen, if you'd have taken a slightly different position, let's say you were on this flower bed, you can actually see, like if you stand on top of it, you can actually see over the truck and into well, which means you get a lot more notice of players coming through this direction. And you can also, if you want to decide to check the lobby, if you want to overextend that way, there's all sorts you can do from that specific angle. So yeah, all I'm saying, maybe try a different spot when you're trying to defend P2 Hacienda than the Jeep. I'm not going to pause too much. I know we're verging on 40 minutes of video now, so it's quite a long one. So I'm going to let this play out and just only nitpick things that are really drastic. Okay, if your team goes 4 down, enemies are going to know exactly where you're coming from. This is a really nice chance for you guys to force it from the front. There's going to be someone blocking in the back, so it makes it a 3v4 from the front. You've actually spawned in the back. They've released the spawn for some reason. I guess there's 15 seconds left. It's actually a smart play, but they don't read it. The difference is when you get to Iridescent or the high crim levels, they read that. So you get stuck back there a little bit more. You've done well there. You got a few kills. It's unfortunate. But hopefully, yeah, where you spawn now tells you that the enemies are coming from well, pretty much. Nice. Unfortunate that you didn't also stun that player, but it's fine. We win, I think, 250 to 220, so I assume everything we do from now on is pretty good, because then you get another 30 points for your 60. Nice, good read. Apologies for the crack thing, it's on the gameplay audio, otherwise I'd stop it. I don't mind this, you get the scrap time. Your teammates seem to be focusing on P4, which is exactly what you want. And now we just pinched P4. Got all sides coming from. Teammates unfortunately fall to Dracaris. Done. 2 spawning up, so it's 2-2 split, which means you've got a gunfight against 2 first, and then it's the remaining 2. Aim wasn't 100% the best there. What a streak. What a streak. Killed 2 enemies. You got to be racing to... Yeah. You can always defend the pinch from the hill. Because, yeah. Teammates were left outnumbered on time, pretty much. Alright, 10 seconds left. So they get all of this, and you get pretty much get... Good frag, deters them from the hill. Brilliant nade. When you slide cancel, your centering does seem slightly off. Like you're not where enemies would be. That's slightly better, but you're aiming quite low. I feel like you're having to correct quite considerably. But your movement's fine. Like you don't need any more movement. Like, if you want to be flashy as a sub, that you probably would need to work on your movement a little bit. But your AR gameplay seems good enough. Where's that guy shooting? Okay. Let's roll it back. Let's roll it back. Roll it back. Roll it back. Okay, first of all, generally you're a good player. Obviously, you got to Crim 1, that's the top 5%, give or take. Obviously a solid player. Your ability to read the map is better than average, I would say, for someone of Crim. And your teamwork and your knowledge of where you need to be and not to all help time, like that sort of thing. A lot of the fundamental elements of COD are really good, but there are sometimes it slips. Like when you child P2 with 15 seconds left, no reason to do that. You can just leave that hill time and rotate to new. That takes a lot of manual thought. And then, yeah, generally, gun skill, pretty good. Movement, pretty good. Okay, they're both fine. Now, they could both, and I know you say your movement's a little bit weaker than your gun skill and your actual aim and accuracy. I beg to differ. I think if you worked on your aim and accuracy and put that as your focus a little bit more, your movement doesn't have to be flashy. Like, you have pros in the league who don't slide cancel, at least never used to slide cancel. So you need to, I think, maybe a little bit more work on your centering coming out of slide cancels. Learn how to slide cancel from a tac sprint so you get the speediness of it, and so make sure you are fully tac sprinting. But then also make it so that you trust your judgment when you're reading gunfights. So a lot of most of the gunfights you lost here are because your centering was off and therefore your aim was off when you started it. And the other times were when you just didn't expect them there. So that tells me you need a little bit more knowledge on where they could be coming from and trust that knowledge and really get that into your head. But I don't think you. I know you say in your form that you want to focus on your movement, but like here, when you fill in this gap, you watch mid, it's not being watched. You decide to watch left because your teammate died. Really good knowledge there. That's really good gameplay. But yeah, your movement could obviously be better, and I think if you're a fast-paced sub, I'd recommend probably trying to practice that a little bit more. But I think your strengths lie with your AR over your sub, so I'd just stay as an AR player as much as you possibly can. Obviously, for P4 and Hacienda, you're going to want to sub for that aggression. But no, I think if I was to give you 2 things to work on, I would say centering, very specifically centering, and then use of your stuns, nades, and trophies in combat. I know a lot on my channel touches on using them when you're around the hill, but when you're trying to make space and just generally maneuver around the map, you can make space using your stuns and nades a lot better than you're currently doing. So really look at that. As we've explained, I'm not going to go into every possible scenario in which that would be beneficial. But this was nice. This was a nice use of area, but you've got to use it more to get information on whether or not an area is safe to enter, get the initial damage out with the frags, that sort of thing. So yeah, centering, use of utility, and again, if you have any questions on those sort of things, you can shout. And then I really think you need to be more confident in your map knowledge. So I think you need to theorize stuff. So in certain situations, really trust yourself to make the decision. I think, okay, they're going to be spawning here. I'm 100% going to be watching this spot as a result. If it doesn't pay off, then you know you need to work on your ability to read spawns better or read the enemy better. And it makes it easier to focus on what you need to do. But you need to try and understand where the enemy team are coming from and hold an angle that makes it so that if an enemy came from that angle, came from that position, you're more likely to win the gunfight than not. So those are the 3 things, okay? Just summary, utility, centering, and reading of the game. So that's going to benefit, you know, your movement and aim is probably going to come later. And you know, you're fine. I think you're fine in that element. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it useful. Sorry, this is a long one, but I thought I wanted to be specific for this video, considering you were trying to make that stretch to Eerie. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Ciao for now.